G'day guys, we finally have the index for World Eaters in our hands, so let's have a look at what these blood-soaked maniacs can do in 10th edition Warhammer 40k.
Look for the Blood God.
Alrighty guys, now let's look at the core battle line unit for the World Eaters, which is the Khorne Berzerkers. Now, when this was first released, I was a little bit skeptical of these guys because it looked like their damage output had been greatly reduced. However, now that we have the full picture, as always, I've been proven wrong, and these guys go in and actually do a serious amount of damage if you can stack the right buffs and abilities on them. So let's have a look at what they do first, and then we'll talk about some of the ways that you can get more damage out of this unit. Alright, so the Berzerkers are going in with 5 attacks that are going to be strength 6 on the charge, of course, and they're going to be doing a fair bit of damage with those attacks. However, the main thing that the Berzerkers are renowned for is their Blood Surge move, which is basically every time one of them dies, you roll a d6 and you get to move d6 inches towards the nearest enemy unit, which this can be absolute game changing. It means if you've got those Berzerkers on an objective, your opponent can't move in and then shoot you off. It also means you're not going to have to spend command points doing things like heroic interventions because you're going to be able to essentially use your Blood Surge move to get into combat with those enemy units. So some really, really interesting play with that. It also means that if you're near an objective marker, for example, and your opponent's closer to you, but objective markers in between you, your opponent's going to be disincentivized to shoot you because if they shoot you, you're going to roll that d6 and you might get on that objective marker. You might get more models on the objective marker than they have, and therefore your objective control of 2 becomes really relevant. You're able to steal those objectives out from underneath your opponent. So there's a lot of different things where that Blood Surge move can be really, really relevant. And I'm also thinking that in an edition where damage output has generally been reduced across the board, there are some outliers where they do serious amounts of damage, more than any 9th edition unit. But in general, the damage output has gone down, which means people aren't going to be wiping the entire unit of Khorne Berzerkers in a single volley. They're going to have to hit you multiple times, which means you are going to get multiple Blood Surge moves, which means these Berzerkers are going to be zipping around the table. One of the other things worth noting is that if you attach a character to your Khorne Berzerkers unit, that character effectively now gains a Blood Surge move. So you can get in your Rhino, you can disembark out, you can move, you can get all the way up in their grill, and then if they shoot at you, that character is now going in and doing serious damage as well, which is a really, really interesting way of delivering things like Khorne the Betrayer, delivering things like your Chaos Lords on Juggernaut or your Master of Execution. So I think the Berzerkers make for an exceptional bodyguard unit for that reason alone. It's also worth noting that whilst their damage output did, in theory, go down, they did gain access to some really interesting stuff, like, for example, they can get +1 to wound when targeting monsters, vehicles, and characters. Now this makes their damage characteristic go way up. With their strength 6, they're going to go in and the most marine characters, they're going to be wounding them on 2s. Even the toughness 5 ones, because we're going to be strength 6 on the charge, we're going to be wounding them on 2s, and that's going to mean that we're going to be just putting a ridiculous amount of wounds on them. Doesn't matter how good their save is, eventually they're going to start failing those armor saves, and they're going to die. Especially when you get things like lethal hits from those, abilities, you're going to be doing a lot of damage with these Khorne Berzerkers. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think there's some really interesting stuff. You can also put things like -1 damage on them, which means that those 2 damage shots, it's going to take twice as many to get through. And you can put the 6-up Feel No Pain on them from the first battle round without needing any blood tithe points, so you can get them durable from the start. There's lots of different stuff that you can do with the Khorne Berzerkers that we couldn't do in 9th edition. Overall, I think the datasheet has improved pretty significantly, actually. The fact that you can attach characters to it, I think, is the big deal for them. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to get these guys on the tabletop. Let me know what you guys think of the exciting new Khorne Berzerker datasheet. Let's get a conversation going below. I think these guys are really good. What do you think?
Look for the Blood God.
community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.